Today we are going to find the inverse of the graph, the function of x equals the quantity x plus 1 squared minus 2. First, let's talk about the vertex of this function. Remember that inside the parenthesis is your horizontal shift, and inside you always move the opposite, so we're going to go left 1. Outside is your vertical transformation, and so we're going to go down 2 for our function f of x. Now, remembering that inverse function, the vertex will be the opposite. So your x and y is switched. So your vertex for your inverse function will be -2, -1. All right, ready to solve algebraically? Instead of y equals the quantity x plus 1 squared minus 2, remember that inverse means switch. You're going to have x equals the quantity y plus 1 squared minus 2. Now it's time to solve for y. So we are going to isolate the square by adding 2 to both sides. We're going to undo the square by taking the square root of both sides. Now remember, this is the big gotcha. Whenever you take the square root, you have to have plus or minus, because initially your parabola was two-sided, and so when you take the inverse and you rotate it, you have both sides of the square root function, which means you have the positive and the negative side of the square root function. Lastly, because we're solving for y, we need to get y by itself by subtracting 1 from both sides. So your inverse function is plus or minus the square root of x plus 2 minus 1. Okay, now let's graph that. Our original function is a parabola at -1, -2. Remembering that the inverse function reflects across the y equals x axis, our new vertex is at -2, -1, and it's plus or minus square root, so you have both sides of the square root function. So this would be the inverse function and the original function.